Now, me and my team here at my Canine Centre are known for working with pretty extreme behaviours and pretty extreme dogs, but this one was especially challenging, was especially difficult. And this is an example of, although we work with a lot of aggressive dogs, not many dogs are truly aggressive, truly want to do harm. We find that the vast majority of dogs are quite fearful and anxious, and they're not trying to hurt another dog if they're barking at them. They just want that dog to go away, or they're unsure of the situation, or they're overly excited. Every now and again, though, a dog does come through with intent to do serious harm. And Indy, the Staffy that we've got here with us today, is absolutely one of those dogs. There is not a shadow of doubt in my mind that give her the opportunity, she would kill another dog, enjoy doing so, and wouldn't bat an eyelid about doing it. Now, not only does she have that serious level of intent towards other dogs, she then also displays a variety of other complex behaviours, in particular fear-based behaviours. So when we get a dog that comes in with this kind of level of severity, we always start with a thorough diagnosis and assessment of both the dog and of the behaviours that we're working on. Starting with the dog, we want to know what the characteristics are of the dog, what the temperaments are of the dog. Are there any genetic issues we need to be aware of? Do we think there's any medical concerns that might need veterinary care? All of those things are absolutely vitally important if you want to be able to make an accurate diagnosis of the behaviour. So that's always where we start. And once me and my team have done that here at the centre, we can then move into the next step, which is looking at the specific behaviours that the owners want working on. Now, obviously, with this dog in particular, it's that level of aggression towards other dogs. So we start by testing it. We want to be able to see with our own eyes exactly what's going on, and we have some incredible stand-in dogs. Stuffany and Fake-Up are our main two stand-ins, which allows us to test the severity of these behaviours without actually using a real dog. Now, with this, it was one of the most extreme examples that we've seen, and was clear as day that this is a dog that has every intent to do serious harm to other dogs. So once we've assessed both the dog and the behaviours that we're going to be trying to focus on, we then have to take risk and safety very seriously, both for myself, for my staff, and for the dog, and for other dogs, and for the owners, and for everyone and other animals that that dog is going to encounter when they leave here. We have to do a deep and thorough risk assessment to understand that A, is our training plan going to be successful, but can that training plan be implemented safely for everybody involved? Now, Indy was already muzzle trained, but it became very clear to us as the day went on that she absolutely hates the muzzle, and that is a big contributing factor to the incredible level of fear that we see when there isn't another dog present, which is what we always want to start with. We need to assess what do we think is the safest way to go about training, which we can then utilise to pair with what equipment do we think is safe and going to allow us to have the most success. And we thought for Indy that a muzzle paired with a slip collar and lead was going to provide us with both of those pieces of the puzzle. But as we went through that process, it becomes very clear that the muzzle is causing significant levels of fear and anxiety and wanting to get the muzzle off. It is very common, especially if a dog has been muzzle trained quickly, which absolutely can be necessary if the dog has had a bite incident or is suddenly showing severe aggression. There are situations where you just need to get that muzzle on, but that obviously has knock-on effects. So it's always this balance between risk and safety versus success with the dog. And Ben, one of the head trainers here, who is one of the most skilled dog trainers in the country, especially with severe cases like this, began to understand that the muzzle is causing us issues, and without the dog being present, we could definitely be safe working the dog without a muzzle, which told us that we have to make sure that we have a deep understanding of what tools we need to use, but then the impact that those tools will have, and then factor into our training plan how can we make the muzzle a more enjoyable, pleasant experience that doesn't create that extreme response that then is going to make the training more difficult. So we factor that into the long-term training strategies, but knowing that we have to get this behaviour under control quickly with dogs, we started by building some communication pathways, utilising the adequate tool, which, like I say, slip collar and a lead, and then we have to go through the process of working that dog with the trigger that creates the problem behaviour. There are people and strategies that might want to avoid the trigger at all costs. Now, for us, we work with clients and we want to actually help clients in the real world. And the reality is that this is going to be a dog that absolutely is going to get put down if it cannot get this behavior sorted, because we cannot avoid dogs at all costs. And if we just simply never take that dog out, it is going to devolve into a nightmare dog in the home. So it has to be able to be exercised safely. And for us to be able to do that, we have to get on top of this problem. And if we're trying to do a strategy that involves avoiding dogs at all costs, and we accidentally see another dog that then knocks us back miles in our training, you never actually make success, which has been the case with this dog. They've been to many other trainers and behaviorists before coming to us, and that is a revolving circle, which often doesn't just mean that success can't be had, but unfortunately that the problem actually gets worse and worse and worse, and consistency isn't there. The dog doesn't have a consistent loving leader to look up to, and it just becomes a mess. So for us, the reason we have such success as part of my system is that we don't shy away from real world situations and we work through those problems. Yes, in this situation, it did mean that once we'd done our risk assessment, once we had analysed the dog's temperament and the behaviour, we warranted that using a correction in this situation was going to be warranted to save this dog's life, because the alternative is absolutely going to be euthanasia. So a small amount of correction, a small amount of pressure with the tool is hopefully going to be able to get us over this hurdle that will allow us to then finally be able to move towards success with using tons of positive reinforcement, tons of games, counter conditioning, desensitization, habituation protocols. But for us to be able to have that breakthrough, we have to be able to have that dog under control, at least to some level of safety around other dogs. So we bring our stooge dogs back out, and utilizing one swift correction, we make it clear to the dog that that won't be accepted. Yes, that does mean that we take a little bit of a step back in terms of relationship, yet that does mean that we add some other elements of negativity into the equation. But again, this cost-risk analysis for us massively skews us in the favour of using the minimal amount of correction possible to allow us to achieve the successful desired outcome that everybody wants, which is for this dog to not be killed and for this dog to be able to move towards a successful, happy life in the long term. So once we do that, it was incredibly successful. Yes, the dog is now starting to avoid the other dogs. Not ideal, but far better than trying to kill the other dogs. Once we've done this process, once we've gone through that, which is why it's incredibly important that you have skilled experts like me and my team to be able to help you through that process, because not done right, things can be catastrophic. We can now finally make progress. And again, through doing this process, we realize that actually the muzzle, although a requirement for safety initially, we weren't getting any redirection towards the handler, and it went incredibly successfully that we wanted to remove that level of anxiety and fear. And because of our skill and experience, we're able to do so successfully, which allowed the dog to come out of its shell a little bit more, and we just simply start making progress. So then we get to work on the fun stuff. We get to work on whatever the dog enjoys. Yes, we've made it clear to them what behaviour isn't acceptable, but we want to make it equally, if not more clear to them what behaviour is acceptable, what it is that we do want them to do. And we pair this with some fun obedience using tons of positive reinforcement. This dog absolutely loves praise. We'll take some food, and food is rewarding to a certain extent, but engagement and praise and a scratch behind the ear is incredibly motivating for this dog. So we're using lots of these kind of natural ways of working with a dog and rewarding the desirable behavior, so that as we move through life initially, it's don't do this, you can't ever do that anymore because that's a one-way trap to euthanasia, or do this instead for me. And then we work on something called operant counter conditioning, where over time we don't just get a dog that sees another dog and is avoiding that other dog and wrapped up in that fear. Yes, it's progress, but it's still not ideal. What we actually wanted to do is get the sight of another dog to trigger the behavior of look up to us for guidance and direction, follow your loving leader for guidance and direction, which then we are able to pile on the praise, pile on the reward, use all of the obedience that we're working on, not need to use pressure or corrections or reversives in the future. And the amount of correction that we need to use starts up here to get this safe and under control, disappears, whilst the desirable behavior increases more and more and more, which allows us to pile on the reward and the positive reinforcement, which is what allows us to be able to actually have success, rather than the people we work with just keep going round and round and round until the dog either gets given up to a rescue centre, which if this dog does will absolutely be euthanized, or they make the decision to euthanize the dog themselves. Because the reality is that this is not a fun dog to live with either. Yes, we can love it, and yes, we can care about it, and the owners of this dog were absolutely amazing and trying their absolute best to get the help that they need. It doesn't mean that this dog's an enjoyable dog to live with. They have to see other dogs out in the world that are beautifully behaved, desperate to have that dog, and I truly believe to my core that this dog can be that. Will it be able to romp through fields playing with dogs and it look absolutely beautiful? No, probably not. This dog hates other dogs and wants to do serious harm to them. But can it be safe and go for a walk and be able to see other dogs and it not be this explosive, violent episode? Absolutely. And that is what we're going to help these owners achieve, which will allow this dog to have a happy life, but will also allow the owners to enjoy their life with this dog, because it's important that you enjoy the process of owning another dog. It should be about the relationship going both ways. You shouldn't be trapped in the misery of a poorly behaved dog. Your dog should be happy, but so should you. And when you get those two things together, it's beautiful. It's the essence of dog ownership. It's what we all envisioned when we wanted to get a dog in the first place. And it's why we're here. It's why we still love what we do of helping people achieve that.